ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ओम
प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दम् कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटजयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलम् गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरः पीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारत पंकजं कलिमलं प्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः। देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Okay, so we'll begin with the reading of chapter 3, verse 35, from left to right. Yeah, Maharaji, could you begin?
The, the results of abandoning one's dharma. Because many Brahmanas have abandoned their Swadharma, there are very few people who are capable of performing the religious activities that the Brahmanas are responsible for. And these few tend to be those who cannot be engineers, doctors, businessmen, soldiers, and so on. This is why the so called religious people of today are not truly religious. Suppose, however, remuneration and satisfaction are not the criteria in terms of what I do. Because I was born in a particular family and because my aim is moksha, I know exactly what is to be done by me. My life becomes a preparation for moksha in that it enables my mind to become mature to gain antakarna suddhi. Preparing the mind in this way is not an ordinary task. One's entire lifetime may be necessary to make the antakarna mature, along with the numerous lifetimes that may have preceded this one. A person can reach his or her 80s and still have the old phobias and childhood problems that he or she had before. It seems as though one lifetime is not enough. And because each lifetime starts with the same innocence, we have the same problems for which there seems to be no solution. If inner maturity is such an important factor and for moksha to be gained, and is to begin, what money do you need to have beyond what you need to live a simple life? Of course, you must be able to buy your food and other basic necessities. Therefore, the need for money depends entirely upon your aim. Because its vision is moksha, the Vedic society is based upon duties, so that the mind may be purified and be able to grasp the vision. If the aim is moksha, there is no competition. Which job you have is not an issue. And because you bring a certain attitude to it, you love doing the job that is yours to do. You know that what you require is maturity of mind, and that by performing what is to be done by you, you will gain it. Changing jobs is only necessary when the aim is money. Nowadays, there are even consulting agencies to advise you about which courses you should take, which field is currently open, where the easy jobs are, the better jobs, the more remunerated jobs. These agencies are staffed by people who earn money by giving such advice to others. The whole approach to learning and doing now has its basis in what will bring more money. If a glut occurs in the field of chemical engineering, everyone becomes disinterested in that field and turns towards electronics. And when there is a glut there, those who are interested in electronics go into chemical engineering. Like this, everything keeps changing and people keep switching. Duties and rights are one and the same.
Okay, that's the next one.
Yeah.
Would anyone like to share thoughts or comments here before we proceed? Okay, good. We'll move to the next one. Nirmalaji?
Hari Om. Duties and rights are one and the same. When power and money are the criteria, your whole attitude changes. Whereas, if Antakarna Shuddhi is the main aim, what job you do means nothing, and how well you do it means a lot. Therefore, in the Vedic society, there are only duties. There are no rights whatsoever. In fact, they are one and the same. We see this also in the American Constitution or in the Constitution of any country for that matter, where a person is granted certain rights, even the right to carry a gun. But along with that right are certain responsibilities. You must have a license and you cannot shoot simply because you happen to have a gun. Any right naturally implies a certain responsibility. You can emphasize the rights and spell out the responsibilities, the duties, which is what modern constitutions do. They specify the rights of citizens and then mention the duties associated with those rights. Or you can emphasize the duties and not mention rights at all. When you emphasize rights, you have to mention the duties and enforce them also. But when you emphasize the duties, you need not even mention the rights. Why is this? If you analyze duties, you find that all duties are interpersonal and interrelated. Duties towards the devatas or gods, towards the forefathers, towards parents, towards other members of one's family, towards fellow beings, and all living creatures. In this way, you have widening circles of duty. In India, even today, the emphasis on duty is reflected in a person's speech. If you ask a man if he can come to see you, he will not say he has to go to work. He will say he has duty. And if he takes up a new job, he will say he has joined duty. He has reported to duty. He's just coming from duty. This is his duty. This concept of duty is called dharma, swadharma, one's own duty. Being a husband, for example, is a role that comes with certain duties. There is no such person called husband. It is merely a role. Related to someone, a man is a husband to that person. And every role has a script, which is one's swadharma. As a husband, then, a man performs his duties according to the script, swadharma. In this way, his wife receives certain rights. Similarly, in her role as wife, she also performs her duties, and as a husband, he receives his rights. How can either person's rights be denied when each one performs his or her swadharma? Similarly, as a citizen, I perform my duties. The state also performs its duties, which become my rights as a citizen. The citizen's duties becomes the state's rights. Therefore, all that we have are duties. Rights come to us as a natural consequence, but we do not go after them. We do not command or demand our rights. We only try to perform our duties. Only when we do what is to be done by us is antakarna shuddhi possible. When our likes and dislikes are one thing and our duty is quite another, we put aside our ragadveshas and go by duty. In the process, everyone gets his or her right and there is no fight. To demand one's right always means fights. One person says, "This is my right," and the other person says the same. Neither person will fight, saying, "This is my duty."
Okay, so I think this is also more or less straightforward, but if there are any thoughts, we could entertain those.
One of the main features of the Indian or the Hindu society is that it is duty based, and we can see how it's transformation from the duty based dharmic society to a right based society is the problems India is facing now. We can see from that. Can understand the problems as part of the transformation from the duty-based to right-based society. If we just observe the present situation in India, we can see that.
Yeah, absolutely true. And as the next section also says, there's no demanded duty, but you can still demand your rights. So everybody becomes a very demanding person when they go after their rights as opposed to pursuing their duties in a diligent way as per the Swadharma. So very good point. We look at the next one. Prasannaji.
There is no demand in duty. Duty is either done or not done. In the concept of duty, there is no demand whatsoever, whereas when one's rights are emphasized, there is always an element of demand. And wherever there is a demand, there are denials and counter demands, the natural results of demanding. This is because no one has the right to demand when he or she has not fulfilled the demands of the other person. When did you write to me that I should write back to you? When did you take me out that I should take you out? When did you phone me that I should phone you? Why didn't you visit me when I was ill? Why should I visit you now that you are ill? Demand means there is always a rub in the form of counter demand or denial. There is friction. We see this in our own homes and in the society in which we live. Daily life is nothing but demands and more demands. When people are always demanding, the society will naturally be a demanding one. We can see this by reading the newspaper columns. Everything is one continuous demand. Even groups are demanding: teachers, nurses, doctors, patients, ethnic groups, males, females, states, and so on. The gods also seem to have become demanding. They seem to say, unless you remember us, no rain for you. If you don't remember us, bang, an earthquake. When you have duties, you will find there is amity. And because you can never fulfill your duties completely, there is also humility. But if each person at least tries to fulfill his or her duties as father and son or husband and wife, for example, they will meet somewhere. In so doing, understanding is possible. Otherwise, there are problems. This is why dharma is called Manava Dharma or Manushya Dharma, the dharma of a human being. Can there be any other basis for our interaction with each other that will benefit us all? If people are live together at home, in a community, in the society, or globally, this is the only way, there is no other way. Our Shastra goes even further and tells us to take into account all the forces. Cosmically speaking also, then there is only one way: appreciating one's position, one's situation, one's station, seeing what is to be done and doing it. Following one's own dharma, swadharma anushtana, in this way and not that of someone else, is the very basis of karma yoga.
Okay. Any thoughts before moving on? So yeah, Ramlaji makes a comment. She says, I observed in the second para, is it true that if we don't remember Ishvara, natural disasters occur? So nature plays out by itself based on the laws of karma. So just to give an example, a few years back there was a huge tsunami in Japan, and it wiped out so many cities, so many villages by the coastline, and I don't know, thousands of people died. Also, they lost their lives. Or if there's an event like a drought, or you have floods, or any other natural disaster, many times we won't say it is a wrath of the gods or the devas, to be specific, but sometimes it could even be the collective prarabdha karma that it was perhaps the way these people's lives had to end collectively as per the prarabdha karma. There will be a time in the future when the entire earth is going to be swallowed by the sun, right? So that's going to be a giant yagna, so to speak. And then that will also be the collective prarabdha karma of just living beings. And then, they will be reborn in a different loka as per their sanchita karma and prarabdha karma. So yes, that definitely, when you appease the devatas, when you propitiate them, when you perform yagnas, a lot of this is to a large extent taken care of. It's mollified a little bit. So if there is some vigraha in your life also, and you remember a certain devata, then there will be some special attention given in whatever it is that you're doing, again based on the laws of karma itself, because by performing the yagna, what you're doing is you're performing a karma, and the karma will also have a phala. So this phala is what we attribute to the devatas, but ultimately it's again part of the entire grand order. So there are some ancient heathen, or I use that in a positive sense, but there are old ancient pagan and heathen traditions around the world where they too have their own deities to propitiate. For example, in ancient by the Scottish Islands, they used to propitiate the goddess of the sea and the sun god and other deities as such, the god of fertility. So, according to them, if their crops were failing a particular year, then they would offer some sacrifice to the god of fertility. So this way, what is actually happening is that you are bringing about an intervention. It is not that the devas are trying to harm you or cause some sort of disruption in your lives. It is again part of the natural order, but through your intervention, you are actually trying to again by exploiting the laws of the natural order, which is the laws of karma, you're trying to bring about a positive and conducive result. So, like as you mentioned, even the tsunami, Chennai storms right now, one can argue from a very karma-based standpoint that there is a collective prarabdha karma that's involved over here. But at the same time, it will also help if we pray to Vayu Devata, who controls the winds. And Vayu Devata is not just on planet Earth, but everywhere. So if anybody recalls the story, there's this very interesting point that Nimalaji brought in. It's good to touch upon this. At the end of the Kenopanishad, there is a beautiful story where Indra Adi Devatas have returned from war with the Asuras and they've come out victorious. And so, it's like India winning a cricket match against Pakistan. So how everybody will be celebrating, something like that. So these people are all celebrating that they defeated the Asuras. And I think the comparison is also quite apt with Pakistan. And now after the victory, they're all patting each other on the back that, we are so great and we're so strong. And then they are having whatever, they're consuming soma rasa and whatnot. So then, a marvelous yaksha. A yaksha is sort of a resplendent being, being made of pure light, appears in front of these guys. And nobody recognizes who it is. And, it's hard for them to even see because there's so much light coming out of that yaksha that they can't even make out the features or whatnot. So Indra is the leader. He's the boss of all the devtas and the gang leader, so to speak. And he'll send other people first that you go check, then why should I go check? So he first sends Agni. And he tells Agni Devata that go and see, who this person is. So then Agni Devata goes up to the yaksha. And the yaksha, he's about to ask the yaksha, who are you? And before he does that, sorry. He goes up to the yaksha and the yaksha is asking Agni Devata, who are you? So Agni Devata is offended because he's popular, right? It is like somebody doesn't know who President Obama or Trump or Modi is. Everybody should know who these people are. And so Agni also feels offended that you don't know who I am. I am the great Agni. And I am the heat principle in all living beings, and you are alive only because of me. I am that, due to which your temperature exists, and your body has not fallen cold and dead. So then the yaksha basically pulls out a blade of grass, and he places it in front of Agni, and he's like, "Acha, you're the grand fire, right? Can you burn this?" So Agni is like laughing that, what a joke. You're presenting a blade of grass. I can incinerate the whole universe if I want. So Yaksha say, okay, go ahead, at least start with this blade of grass. We'll think about the universe later. So Agni is trying to burn that blade of grass, but he just puts a little bit of effort and nothing happens. So now Agni Devata thinks that, maybe you've done some magic on this thing, so maybe I'll have to try a little harder. And so he puts some more effort, but the blade of grass is still intact. It doesn't burn. And then he puts some more effort, and the blade of grass is still intact. And then he puts some more effort, but the blade of grass is still intact. So then sorry, I got disconnected for a second. So then Indra sends Vayu Devta, and so Vayu Devta does the same drill. Basically, he goes to the Yaksha and he's asking, who are you? And the Yaksha is like, who are you? And so then Vayu Devta is like, I am Vayu, I am the breath in all beings, I am the source of all the prana. If I leave, then all beings will die because they'll be left without any prana. So then, and also I control the winds and I control the air and I control all of these things around the whole universe. So then Yaksha is like, okay, big deal. Here's a blade of grass. Can you lift it with your wind, with your wind power? So Vayu is feeling offended. He's like, I can create huge hurricanes and whatnot, and you're asking me to lift this blade of grass? What a joke! And so he tries to do that, but he sends a gust of wind, but nothing happens. It still remains intact. Then what happens is Vayudevta is feeling a little restless. So he becomes a huge tornado, like a massive, F5 level tornado. He becomes a hurricane, he becomes a tempest. Nothing works. The blade of grass is exactly where it was on the ground. He can't move it also, not even an inch. So now, he's also feeling embarrassed like Agni, and he goes back to Indra. And Indra's like, did you find out? And Vayu Devta's like, oh, no, I don't know. He's just dodging the question and he moves away. So Indra, there's a saying, right, that if you have to do a job, do it yourself. You can't rely on other people. So Indra's like, okay, you losers, you can't do anything. Let me only go find out, because I'm the lord of all the devatas and I'm the king, and I'll handle this. You guys just watch and learn. So he's being all arrogant and everything. Of course, I'm adding color to the story. And so Indra Devta goes up to the Yaksha, and before he can even ask the Yaksha, who are you? The Yaksha's like, who are you? And now Indra, no, the Yaksha disappears basically in front of Indra's eyes before he can even communicate with him. And so now Indra feels a little humbled, because he realizes that, see, I sent the great Agni and I sent the amazing Vayu, both of these people who can accomplish anything in the world, but they couldn't find out. And now, before I could even ask, this person is gone. He's disappeared in front of my eyes. And so maybe I think we were being too arrogant, and we were overestimating our own abilities and our own prowess. And so he becomes humbled. This is what you would refer to as humility, really. And so he gets on his knees, and he just chants a prayer out of humility. And because of this Vinayam, now Parvati Devi comes in place of the Yaksha, and she begins instructing Indra in what you would call the Vedic teachings, the Upanishadic teachings, the same things that we are learning right now. And that is how the story kind of wraps back to the first chapter of the Kenopanishad again, where the student is Indra Devta and the guru is Parvati Devi, who is Shiv Bhagwan's wife. And the Yaksha represents Bhagwan, Ishvara over here. So if you recall, if anybody is familiar with the Vishnu Sahasranam also, the third name of Vishnu, Vashatkaraha. Vashatkaraha implies that whatever you offer your yagnas into, it goes to the devatas, certainly. So, you say that Agni is the messenger. Agni is the one who carries the propitiated material to the other devatas. But even the devatas are not the final destination, so to speak. It even bypasses the devatas and it goes to Ishvara. Because whatever goes to the devas, whatever glory belongs to the devas, is actually Ishvara's own glory. Whatever you propitiate to the devas, you are actually propitiating to Ishvara, because the devas are also, in their essence, in their material, in their very substance, the truth of everything is Ishvara. So there's also a very famous shloka, right? Akashat patitam toyam sagaram prati gacchati sarvo deva namaskaraha keshavam prati gacchati. So just as akashat patitam toyam, so just as the water, the rain falls from the sky and it joins and it merges back into the ocean, same way, sarvo deva namaskaraha. So I do namaskaras, I propitiate, I worship all the devatas, all the devas, but ultimately it goes to Ishvara. So the coming back to what Nirmalaji said earlier, that yes, indeed, certainly it is true that by worshipping, by propitiating the devas, whatever natural calamities that you face would definitely be reduced. But here, what you're actually doing is you're using the order to act within the order, which is what you would call the laws of karma. And through the laws of karma, you, as a knowledgeable, as an informed Vaidika, are able to bring about some goodness in yourself as well as your entire society. So if you're a farmer and your farm is dry because it's been a dry spell, and there's a risk of all your crops dying, then you will propitiate Varuna Devta, you will propitiate Indra Devta, and you will ask for rain. And not only will it rain in your field, but it will also rain in neighboring fields. So this is another very important point, somewhat related, that whenever we offer to the Devatas, we don't say I am offering, we say we are offering. Even if you recall the Gayatri Mantra, Om Bhur Bhuvasava Swaha Tatsavitur Vare Enyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yunah Prachodhyayat. So Dhimahi we meditate upon. You don't say I meditate upon the effulgent Lord, you say we meditate upon. So that's why even our prayers are collective, and then the results also that come are collective. It's not only going to rain on your house, it's going to rain in the neighboring fields as well. Prosperity, when it comes to you, it's also going to come to your family, and through your family it will come to your society. So everything over here is an interconnected play It's a network of karma, and the intricacies cannot be understood. But if we understand them in a general sense, and we are able to connect it all back to Ishvara, then that's a very beautiful appreciation of the order. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. So, Nirmalaji, could you chant the next verse?
Sure. Arjuna Vacha Atakena Prayuktoyam Papam Charita Purushaha Anichannapi Vashneya Baladivani
And I think you're only reading, right? Yeah, Nirmalaji is next. Or is it Shashiji? Sorry, Shashiji.
Sorry, Prashantji, excuse me for today. I have some throat bad issues, so I'll skip.
No problem. Yeah, hope
Shamu,
you
I
feel
can
better.
read. Yeah.
Then Solveig ji is next.
I can read, yes. Arjuna said, impelled by what does a person commit sin, as though pushed by some force, even though not desiring to. Oh, Vashneya. Previously, it was pointed out that there are likes and dislikes with reference to every sent object, and all you have to do is not fall under their spell. Tayoho Vasham na agachit. It was also said that even though one's Swadharma, what one must do is not very pleasant. It is better to follow that than to follow something else that is more pleasing and convenient. Hearing all of this in terms of Karma Yoga, Arjuna asked, what is it that impels a person to perform an action that he or she knows is not proper? Some kind of pleasure may be there, but still the person knows that the action is not becoming and will produce sin, dukkha. If the person did not know, of course it would be different and understandable. Why does a person do a karma that he or she knows to be an improper action? Kena prayuktaha papam charati purushaha. Impelled by whom or what does he or she do this action? Posing this question, Arjuna addressed Krishna here as Vashneya, one who is born in the family of the Rishis. Arjuna described such a person as one who is as though Eva, impelled or pushed into performing improper actions by some force, balat, niyujitaha, niyujita implying a devilish force. Further, the person is pushed into it, even though he or she does not want to do it. The person knows it is not right, anicca, meaning that he or she does not have any real intellectual value for performing such action. But still it is done. Why? Impelled by whom? Kena prayuktaha. This was Arjuna's question. Duryodhana was once asked, why do you do all this papa karma? You come from a good family and have been brought up so well. You are a prince. What impels you to do such things? In a verse attributed to him, Duryodhana responded, I know what is right, Nanami dharmam, and I also know what is not right, Nanami adharmam. My problem is not that I have any innocence or confusion with reference to what is right and wrong. The problem is that I know dharma, but I do not pursue it. Nanami dharmam na chami brahvitihi. And I know adharma, but I cannot refrain from it. Nanami adharmam nacha me nifitihi. Duryodhana then went on to say, in whichever way I am impelled by the one sitting in my heart, in that way I do ken api divina riti stitina yata niyuktosmi tata karomi. It may have been a person or a force, but Duryodhana did not know who or what it was. Thus, Duryodhana and Arjuna had the same question. Who or what is it that is sitting in the mind, forcing the person to do what he or she knows to be wrong, even when the person does not want to do it? Can you scroll up?
Can you read the footnotes?
The footnotes, okay. Of course, Purusha eva Purusha. The word Purusha is the same as Purusha, meaning a person. Vishnu is the name, one of the ancestors of Krishna, by whose name the entire clan is known. Because he belongs to the clan of Vishnu, he is known as Vashneya. However, this word can be interpreted differently. Brahmanandam Vakshati iti Vishnihi samyak buddha tena avagamyati iti Vashneya. That should show us on one the fullness of Brahman is called Vishnu, the clear knowledge of Brahman. Brahma Vidya, the one who is known. By this knowledge is Vashneya.
One small suggestion. So when you're reading the Sanskrit, if you read it a little bit more slowly, then
Yes.
perhaps the confusion between the and the will not come, because I think
Okay.
some of these are getting switched.
Yes, okay.
Sure. So this one verse is very important to remember. You know, it's a quote-worthy verse that Janami dharmam nacha me pravrittihi, janami adharmam nacha me nivrittihi. So I know what is dharma and yet I cannot follow it. I know what is adharma and yet I cannot let go of it. So this was the predicament of Duryodhana throughout the entire Mahabharata. He was educated by the same teachers. You know, Dronacharya taught Arjuna just as well as he taught Duryodhana. But the Pandavas followed dharma, whereas the Kauravas did not follow dharma, though both of them understood what dharma and adharma is. They both had that understanding, but they could not follow it. So that's a very important point. So okay, we'll continue. Yeah. So before we begin the next verse, any thoughts, comments, questions?
I think it's not just Arjuna or Duryodhana's a predicament. It feels like it's most of human life's predicament. We know what's right, but we don't always do what's right.
True. Okay, so Nirmala ji can chant the next one.
Hari Om. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhavaha Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyena Meha Vairinam.
Anjuji can read the next one.
Sure. Sri Bhagavan said, this desire, this anger, born of the guna rajas, is glutton and a great sinner. Know that to be the enemy here is the world. In this commentary to this verse, Shankara discusses the sixfold bhaga or qualities possessed by the one who is called Bhagavan, total lordship, Aishwarya, the strength to create, vidya, all fame, yasas, all wealth, resources, Shri, all knowledge, omniscience, jnana, and total dispassion, freedom from any sense of what vairagya. This vairagya is not sadhana. This vairagya is not a sadhana, a means for gaining the knowledge. It is absolute vairagya that comes with complete fullness. Therefore, Bhagavan is the one in whom the sixfold qualities always remain in their entirety. Everyone has these qualities in a small measure. All have limited jnana and vairagya. Certainly, with reference to garbage, almost everyone has vairagya, although what is garbage for one may not be for another. In Bhagwan, however, each of the six qualities is without any hindrance or obstruction whatsoever. Shankara goes on to say that Bhagwan is one who knows about the creation and the dissolution, utpatim, pralayam chaiva. He also has complete knowledge of the good and bad ends of all beings. He also has complete knowledge about the time, type, and place of birth and death of all things. Bhutanam agatim gatim. Whatever be their lot, pleasure or pain, sukha or dukkha, he knows that too. He also knows knowledge and ignorance of the bhutas, veti vidyam avidyam cha. Here the word avidya also means karma. This is the one who is called Bhagwan. Sa vachyo Bhagwan iti, quotes Shankara. Shall I continue?
No, that's the next one. So we'll do one section each. So yeah, just one comment. So I think sometimes there's a confusion between the sound and the sound. For instance, it's not vairagya, but it's vairagya. So wherever you see, even Solveig-ji, wherever you see the sort of horizontal line on top of the so then that becomes and if there isn't a horizontal line, then it's And I notice often there's sort of a mistake committed towards the end of the word. When you have a word like karma, then it's pronounced as karma, or vairagya is pronounced as vairagya. So I think it would be important to be cognizant of how one ends the word, because then that would even change the meaning. Just to give you an example, if you say Shiva, so when we say Shiva Bhagwan, and if you say Shiva, then Shiva actually refers to Parvati, not to Shiv Bhagwan any longer. So when you say Shiva, it's Parvati. When you say Shiva, it's Shiva. So the pronunciation may at times even change the meaning. So whenever reading Sanskrit, it's a good practice to read it slowly, but to pronounce it as correctly as possible, just so that even the next time we pronounce it, it sticks in our mind. So any thoughts on what we've covered otherwise, and just the content based? Okay, so I think I'll just recap the 6 bhagas, because this is a very important definition. So when we talk about Bhagwan is defined and as having 6-fold bhaga. So these bhagas are the qualities, and Aishwarya, Virya, Yashas, Shri, Jnana, and Vairagya. So these 6 attributes you would attribute these 6 qualities to Ishvara in complete measure, whereas every individual has some of these in limited measure. So as many would recall, Vairagya is also one of the qualifications for a student of Vedanta. And earlier when we talked about Swadharma also, when we it's not mentioned explicitly in the Sadhana Chatushtaya, but it's the definition of Uparama. If you recall the Sadhana Chatushtaya, Uparama is one of the qualities that a student should possess. And the definition of Uparama is Swadharma Anushtanam. So to follow one's Swadharma, to abide by one's Swadharma, is also qualification for a student of Vedanta, not just for any dharmi. So in fact, living a life of dharma is the qualifier to become a student of Vedanta. So that's a very important point to make. Okay, let's look at the next one. Yeah, Shamubai can read.
Improper actions come from desire alone. In this verse, Bhagavan told Arjuna that what impels a person to do an action of papa is but a thought. A thought itself is not a person. It depends upon a person. Therefore, it is not a real substantive. But because the Atma is with the thought, a thought assumes a certain force. This thought is kama, desire. The expression, this desire, esha kamaha, indicates that it is something known to everyone. Thus, Krishna was telling Arjuna, you yourself can know this desire by looking into yourself. When you ask why a person performs an improper action, do you really think there is some devil or something in there? You are the only devil. There is no other devil, no separate satanic force sitting there interfering with Bhagwan's work. There is no second force more powerful than Bhagwan. You are both the devil and the angel here. It is your own desire alone that this desire is something that is very well known to you. To say that a person performs improper action, even though the desire to do so is not there, simply means that the will does not seem to have the force necessary to stop the want karma. The want becomes so powerful and your identification with the want becomes so complete that whatever wisdom may be there telling you that what you want is not good for you is silenced. In this way, karma can be very powerful. Desire is born out of Rajoguna alone, Rajoguna Samudbhavaha, whereas wisdom is born out of Sattva. When Rajas is predominant, there is desire. Because Rajas is a force, Kama is also forceful. Kama is said to be your enemy, Vairi. An enemy being one who does what is not good for you. Kama is inimical to you when it makes you go after things you do not really want or need, things that you can afford to be without. In this way, it is your enemy. Kama also has another form, Krodha. Krodha, anger, is simply another stage of Kama. If Kama is destroyed in any way, if it is obstructed and not allowed to fulfill itself, to anger. Arjuna was only too well aware of how this happened. Should I read the footnote now?
Yeah.
Utpattim pralayam chaiva bhutanaam gatim vetti vidyam avidyam cha savachyo bhagavaniti. This is another way of describing Bhagavan when it's from Vishnu Purana. This is another way of describing Bhagavan. We saw the first definition on page 24. Born of Indra's grace, Arjuna was considered to be Indra's son. Indra thought he would reward Arjuna, who had been doing tapas in the forest for a long time, by sending a beautiful Urvashi to him. Urvashi was celestial damsel, the most beautiful Apsara in heaven, and therefore the dream of all men, including the men in heaven. When Arjuna told Urvashi he did not want to have anything to do with her, that he was already married and that he considered her as a mother, Urvashi became very angry and put a curse on him that he would lose his masculinity and become an eunuch. Lord Indra intervened on behalf of Arjuna and made Urvashi modify the curse such that it would Arjuna would become an eunuch only for the period of 1 year, and that he could choose the time when the curse could take effect. Later, this curse turned out to be a blessing for Arjuna, since it made him eligible to teach dance and music to the ladies in the palace during the year he was to remain incognito. At the beginning of the 13th year of exile, Arjuna opted for the curse to take effect and became Brihannala and spent the year teaching dance and music. Arjuna had therefore experienced how desire can turn into anger. When Urvashi's desire for Arjuna was not fulfilled, it became anger. A person whose love has been rejected can even become violent towards the object of his or her love. Rejected love means that the karma want is there. It is not like the love that one has for the stars, the moon, the sky, etc. There, one's mind has no demands as to how they should be or should not be. The mind totally accepts these as they are and enjoys them as they are. Therefore, this kind of love does not cause any problem. This is not the case with karma, that is demanding and therefore binding. This calm this binding karma can be called by many names. In the beginning, it is called want, then passion, and then anger. All these are born out of Rajoguna. Kama as Krodha was referred to here as Mahapapma. Mahapapma, a great sinner. The cause of those actions that a person regrets for his or her entire lifetime. Such actions have to be paid for, and karma alone is the cause. Atma has nothing to do with them, nor do the body, mind, and senses. And although your ignorance has something to do with performing improper actions, ignorance itself has nothing to do with it. Who does it? Desire alone, kamaha eva does it. There is even a mantra to this effect, chanted by adults and children alike. The mantra is, desire did it, anger did it, O Lord, my salutations. Kam, kamokarshit, manyurakarshit, namo namaha. This mantra is repeated 1008 times on certain day of the year. It is not just a prayer. It carries a message too. It implies that I did not do it. This Thus, if knowledge is there, there is no problem. This is why Krishna said, understand Vidhi, that Kama alone is your enemy. As your enemy, Kama forces you to perform actions that you know are improper and that do not really want and that you do not really want to do. Just as Duryodhana said, there is something sitting in my heart impelling me to do wrong actions, but I don't know who the person is. Arjuna also did not know. Here, Bhagwan made it very clear that this person is none other than Kama.
Okay, so this was a long section. If there are any thoughts, we could definitely discuss.
I'm surprised that I didn't know there was a chant like that. That's pretty good. I learned something new. Maybe I should memorize that one. That might help me a lot.
Yeah, it's the first time I heard it also. Did anybody else encounter this before? Yeah, very interesting. So any additional thoughts? Okay. We can look at the next one then. Yeah, Malaji can read, and then if Nirmalaji can intervene and chant in between.
Desire is insatiable. There is one more word given in the verse to describe Kama, Mahasana, one who is a great glutton. Kama never says enough.
Just one small thing. So it's a kama, not kama. So like as I was mentioning that the a versus a, and when you see the visarga, like the h word, it would be maha shanaha, maha shanaha. So yeah,
Ma-
yeah.
okay, Mahashanaka. Karma never says enough. Of course, its fulfillment may be enough for some time, but eventually the karma will start up again, just like a glutton who barely takes time to swallow the food being eaten before wanting more. That is the nature of want. Any want is always replaced by further wants. There is no end to the gluttony of karma, Krishna said here. To suppose that by continuing to fulfill one's wants there will be a day when none remains is not a reasonable assumption. Like fire, karma always wants more. It will never say enough. Therefore, there is no possibility of karma coming to an end. It just goes on breeding. That this is why we always have wants. In the next verse, Krishna told Arjuna how karma operates.
Yeah, Nirmalaji can chant
Nirmala.
this and you can continue.
Yeah. Umenavrivahnini yatha darsho. Hello, can you hear me?
I think you faded off in the end.
Hello.
I think it faded off. Can you chant again, please?
Okay, I'll try. धूमेनाव्रियते वह्निर्यथादर्शो मलेन च यथोड्डेनावृतो गर्भस्तथा तेनेदमावृतम्.
Okay, Malaji can continue. Yeah, sorry, I think in between the voice had gotten muted or something. So, yeah.
Just as the fire is covered by clouds of smoke, just as a mirror is covered by dust, and just as a fetus is covered by the womb, so too knowledge is covered by desire. Even though fire is self revealing, prakasatmaka, being effulgent and requiring no light to be seen, still the smoke coming from the fire can cover the fire itself. In the same way, one's discrimination, viveka, knowledge of what is to be done and what is not to be done, is covered by kama, which is born of the mind alone. There are two types of vivekas: dharma, adharma viveka, meaning karya, akarya viveka, which is to be done, and what is not to be done, atma, anatma viveka, the ability to discriminate between the real and the unreal. This twofold viveka is required to conduct one's life. If you have karya, akarya viveka, then atma, anatma viveka will follow naturally. These two vivekas constitute knowledge, jnana. The mind, buddhi, that has this knowledge, viveka jnana, is covered by kama, just as fire can be covered by its own smoke. Like fire, your jnana is also self-revealing. Therefore, it should be able to serve you. But because it is covered, it cannot. When the karma comes, it takes you over so completely that your murmuring wisdom is nowhere to be found. Krishna provided two other examples here: a mirror covered by a coat of dust and a fetus covered by the womb. The mirror and the fetus are not seen simply because they are covered. You can see the mirror, but at the same time, it is not clear at all. So, too, an unborn child is there, but you cannot see it because it has yet to see the light of day. So, too, in the first example, fire is there because you see the smoke. You cannot see the fire because it is covered.
Okay, very nice. So, very important point over here. We often think that, okay, we've studied Vedanta for several years now. We've encountered Brahma Vidya repeatedly. Tattvamasi has been told umpteen number of times. So, where is all this knowledge? Where is it gone? Why is it not coming to the surface? Why am I not able to abide in it at all times? And this is the reason. This is exactly the reason that, the knowledge is there, but it is baditha jnana. It is covered, it is obstructed. And these obstructions, whether you call them kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsaryam, and all the kashayas which get in the way, which give rise to chitta ashuddhi, that is what has to be removed. And this removal can only take place through karma yoga and performing your duties with a strong sense of swadharma, performing upasanas and so on. So karma is extremely important for the firm abidance in knowledge. And this is what Bhagwan is conveying over here. So are there any thoughts based on what we've just read before we move on?
What was nice is that they gave the example that was given in the beginning is desire is covering, like smoke covers the fire, desire is covering the knowledge for us too.
Yes. Okay. So,
Yeah, I think, Shanji, this is a pretty good thing what we read, and maybe some more elaboration needs to be done, like how the desire, how the karma is making a cover on the knowledge, and the knowledge here, if I understand, is mentioned or relate to the two things, which is what is to be done and what is not to be done. That specific part of the knowledge, I think, is being referred here. The jnana of that part, right?
yeah.
So what we need is maybe an examples how karma covers that. How karma stops for someone to relate and to be aware of all time what is to be done and what is not to be done. So, okay, so it's like saying person knows what is to be done, and he also knows or she also knows what is not to be done. But still the desire comes over and it takes over that, right?
Yes. So that's a very important point, worth elaborating upon. So earlier in the commentary, Pujya Swamiji mentions that where does this karma emanate from? Obviously, it cannot belong to the Atma. Right? That is extremely clear to us already from chapter 2 also. It cannot belong to the body because the body is not angry. It cannot belong to the senses either because the senses are also not angry. Right? I mean, the senses are simply conveying the information from the outside world. They are the sense organs which convey the knowledge of the outside world to the mind. And so anger cannot belong to the senses. Anger cannot belong to the body. Anger cannot belong to the Atma. Can anger belong to the mind? Well, it can occur in the mind, but it is also not the nature of the mind. Because when we talk about the Antakarana, going back to Tattvabodha, so here's a footnote I'll make. Tattvabodha is extremely essential to understand many of these concepts also, because so many of these are covered and it lays the foundation for what we study in the Gita as well. So in Tattvabodha, we've learned that the Antakarana is comprised of the Sattva Amsha of the Panchabhutas. So I'm getting a little technical over here for the benefit of those who are familiar with these terminologies. And those who aren't, I would be happy to elaborate further on that as well. So the Antakarana, being of the nature of Sattva, it cannot have in its essence a predominance of Rajas. So when we talk about Kama, it is a play of the Rajas Guna that occurs, and the gunas are simply independent of the mind, independent of the self. So the gunas are functioning, and the gunas are performing actions. This is something that will perhaps be covered in the Gita later on also. That whatever it is that you're doing is nothing but a play of gunas. The whole evolution of the entire universe is because of a play of the gunas. So the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, are in a constant dance. They are in a waltz, and they're sometimes one is predominant, sometimes the other is predominant, and at different times and different places, one or the other guna will surface. So when we talk about kama, it is the predominance of rajas guna that is surfacing in the mind, though it is not its essential nature. The reason the mind feels happy, to be honest, or for lack of a better word, or when the mind feels at peace in the presence of a sattvic mindset, is because that is its nature. If the nature of the mind was rajas, it would actually feel peaceful when it was agitated. You see, the mind wants to be sattvic because that is its nature. It wants to go back to its nature. So rajas, tamas are not inherent to the mind. They just occur as a consequence of the gunas. So first it is important to define what this karma is. And this karma is a flow of the rajas gunas that manifest in the form of thoughts, in the form of desires. So the desire becomes a vritti. The vasana comes in the form of a vritti. It surfaces from the antakarana, and for a moment it overtakes your better sense. So you may know that, okay, chalo, I'm supposed to perform Sandhya Vandanam daily. I'm supposed to do Gayatri Mala daily for X number of times. But I feel very lazy. I feel like watching this new movie that has come out, and forget it. It's okay. There's always another day. So this way, your mind is overtaken by tamas guna, laziness. Or you know that there's a very close friend of yours. You know that there's some family member that you really love and respect. But sometimes they do something which does not sit well with you, and you lose your temper, and you may use unparliamentary words against them, which you regret later on. So this was obviously not deliberated by you. When you're angry and when you express your anger in an uncontrolled fashion, then you cannot say that this was something that was under my control, because the mind has no control over it. Anger, which is expressed, which you regret later, is simply anger, an emotion that you expressed, which you did not deliberate upon. And that simply means that it is not the mind that performed this action, but rather that the mind was overtaken by this rajas guna which performed the action. And therefore, through the buddhi, which is now again a function of the antakarana, we have to practice dhamma. as Tattva says, Dhamma is to control your expressions, to control your sense organs, to be watchful over your actions. And then the next step would be Shama. So Shama as opposed to Kshama. So Kshama is forgiveness and Shama is Mano Nigraha. So that is the technical definition of Shama, Mano Nigraha. To be watchful of your mind. And not, I don't mean that in the meditation sense, because sometimes people say be watchful. What I mean is that know your thoughts. Understand that this is a certain thought that is in the mind. Entertain it also, and just blow it away. You know, there's a thought which will come that, oh, I want to go and beat this person, or I want to say something nasty to this person. Let the thought come, and let it also go away. But if you entertain it and you give it a home, then the thought will stay, and then you will be likely tempted to act upon it. So it is very important not to resist the flow of thoughts, but to resist acting upon them. So slowly, as you practice Dhamma, Shama will become natural. You can't start with, Shama and then move on to Dhamma, because if you have Shama, then Dhamma is not required. If you are able to control your thoughts, then you don't need to control your actions. But if you are able to control your actions to begin with, then slowly you will be able to control your thoughts also. So you sort of move backwards from there. And so there are many ways in which you can Pujya Swamiji has also talked about managing your anger. See, now Rajas is there. Some people have a proclivity towards Rajas Guna, and then they may even take up the professions which support Rajas Guna. And this could be used in a very positive sense. For example, if you're a soldier, you can't be a highly sattvic soldier. You need to have some element of Rajas in your constitution. I don't mean the Indian constitution. I mean in your inherent makeup. You should constitutionally be geared towards Rajas, so that when you have to kill somebody in the line of action, in the line of duty, then you do it because it is your duty, and you don't hesitate. You don't faint at the sight of blood. Sometimes you need to do a certain action. Sometimes, tamas is also important. So one has to know that the gunas are not your enemies. If you use the gunas to your advantage, then they are your best friends. So if you go to sleep at night, that is because you have allowed tamas to overtake you. Imagine staying awake whole night and feeling very sleepy, when you're at work. So tamas is also important. Sometimes sattva is also important. Sometimes rajas is also important. The mind's job is to know when to act upon each of these and when to entertain each of these. And so that is how, once we become more watchful, mano nigraha, when that takes place, then you're always in control. And then you don't need to ever fear that one day I'm going to say something I shouldn't have said, or one day I'm going to do something I should not have done. Because you will always be in keeping with dharma. And so monitoring your thoughts is very important. It's very essential. It's very helpful. So all of these things, are sadhanas, they are upasanas, they are practices which will help you with Vedanta. And so that's my elaboration on these. Let's look at the next one. Back to Nirmala ji.
Hello. Yeah. Simple Viveka will dismiss many desires. There is a specific reason why Lord Krishna used 3 different examples to make his point here. Everyone has certain karmas that rob his or her wisdom away, but only for the time being. With a little viveka, a little discretion, you can dismiss them. There are always so many fancies going on in your head, but they need not hold you for any length of time. It is like walking through a department store. You see many things that you would like to buy, but you just walk away without buying any of them, which is just as well, because if you fulfilled every fancy, your home would become the department store. Thus, such fancies take hold of you temporarily, but then by some inquiry, vichara, by considering your purse, by seeing whether you need the objects or not, whether you really want them or not, you are able to dismiss these fancies. Thus, with reference to certain wants, then all that you require is a short vichara. Other wants, of course, may require a longer vichara. Mere vichara may also not be enough. Some force of will may be necessary to dismiss the desire. Still, you will come out the victor because you have the necessary will. You may have to say no out loud most empathically if you really want to do a particular thing. For example, when someone asks you to go somewhere and you want to go, but you know you should do something else instead, you may reply with a loud no. In such cases, half the no is for the other person and the other half is for yourself. This is why it comes out twice as loud. What this no is all about is so well known in India that if you say it when you're eating, you'll be given one more helping of food. This no requires will on your part. Vichara itself is not enough. This way of dismissing a desire is likened here to the mirror that is covered with dust. Merely blow on it is not enough. Not only will the mirror remain dusty, it will become hazy as well. You have to take a wet cloth and wipe the mirror clean, which requires both will and effort. Similarly, not giving in to your desires requires vichara and will. Talking with someone who understands such matters which requires effort or some other action may also be necessary. The example of the unborn child in the womb is much stronger in that the time factor kala must also sometimes be taken into account with reference to not giving into one's desires. It takes 9 months for a child to be born. Similarly, it may take time to understand your desires and to gain a certain mastery over them. When time is required and you try to circumvent it, the whole effort will be aborted. Therefore, you need to bide your time. The covering illustrated in this verse is binding desire and its modifications. The next verse reveals what is covered. Discriminative knowledge, viveka, is covered. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kaunteya dushpurenanalena cha.
Thank you, Nirmalaji. So I think we've covered quite a bit today and several pages as well, and a lot of information to churn over. So perhaps we can begin with this next time around, and let's call it a day. Okay. Yeah, perfect. So I think we're thinking alike today. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Namaste.